Just last week, I had my 2 foster puppies get adopted, so I'm spending far less time cleaning up after them. And certainly, but last but not least, I am excited that Jen and Dana are here to enlighten us with their incredible marketing process knowledge. But before I hand it off to them, I want to introduce myself. My name is Zach Jones, and I'm the marketing coordinator at Vertical Measures, and I will be attempting to do my best Ryan Seacrest impression over the next hour for today's webinar, how to streamline your marketing process and generate the biggest results. And it will be presented by the aptly titled Senior Vice President of Operations, Dana Kaitazevich, I got that, and Director of Project Management, Jen Tanabe. A quick bio about the two. Dana brings over 15 years of digital agency experience with a strong background in leadership and business process improvements, and oversees the project management, strategy, content, and search teams here at VM. Jen oversees our project management team and has nearly 10 years of digital marketing experience in strategy, content creation, SEO, amplification, lead nurture, and website development. In addition, she oversees enterprise level accounts, helping to plan, control scope, identify, and mitigate risk while effectively communicating with both her clients and the team, and writing very difficult to read bios. Wow, fun day. I do have a few more notes before I pass it off to them. One question we always get is, will the recording be available? Of course it will. We have it. We'll send it out to everyone in an email tomorrow, and you can always find all of our webinar information at verticalmeasures.com/webinars. And if you have any questions that come up during the presentation, send them to us through the chat tab on your GoToWebinar interface or on Twitter at #VMWebinar. And finally, there will be a survey after the webinar, whether you log out in the middle or at the end. It's 4 questions. We really appreciate it if you take the time to answer those. It won't take very long. It really helps us out. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Dana and Jen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dana.
And I'm Jen. Just trying to get this slide to work. Okay. Hi there. Thank you for joining us today. We have a few things that we hope you'll learn today. How to be more efficient in your own sales and marketing processes. How to successfully onboard a new customer or a new project within your company. How to keep that project chaos to a minimum. And how to use that project data to track your overall success. Today's webinar will be formatted in problems and solutions. So we'll tell you about the problems that we faced at our company, and I'm guessing you guys have probably experienced some similar problems, and then we'll recommend solutions to you based off of our own experience. So there are 10 quick wins today. Our first is how we initiate the scope, timeline, and budget process for new projects by using a collaboration tool. So the problem for us, which many of you may be familiar with, is that scoping new projects was very chaotic. For us, that consisted of thousands of emails, hours of meetings, no documentation of those meetings in a central place, and actually documents that lived in lots of different places. So they could be in a personal desktop or a shared server or emails. So all of this resulted in inaccurate pricing and, even worse, scope that really didn't meet the project needs or project goals. It felt a little bit like this, a little chaotic internally, and I'm sure any of our customers or new project customers felt that as well. So we had to come up with a solution to streamline the process, and we would recommend you take a similar approach. It may not be the exact people or roles that I'm going to discuss today, but we recommend kind of following this model. So for us, the process begins with a salesperson, and that salesperson identifies a prospect as what we call a sales qualified lead, and then they submit a scope, timeline, budget, or STB request through our collaboration tool. And from there, all of our subject matter experts can communicate in one central location, can share documents back and forth, etc. Sometimes we still have meetings. They are greatly decreased than they had before, but the salesperson is responsible for documenting that meeting. They write the action items and notes in the request so that everybody can see and refer back to this later. And as a result, this has really streamlined our process.
This is Dana. I am going to jump in here on this quick win that we do. But before I do, bear with me. I am a little bit under the weather today. My throat's a little sore, and I'm drinking some hot tea to get me through. So if my voice starts to crack or fade, just bear with me through this. So I'll get started. So our number 2 quick win is how we initiate our new project onboarding. So again, we do that by using a customer or project alert. So request or an alert, whatever you want to call it, to inform our marketing teams or our delivery teams that have to execute on that work. The biggest problem that we faced at Vertical Measures is we started doing about 3 or so years ago a client satisfaction survey that we send out to our clients because we want to get their feedback. And the survey responses that we received back, the score was below our industry average, which was shocking and a little bit upsetting. So we knew we needed to get behind fixing that. The feedback that we had received, most of the negative feedback at that time was related to our onboarding process for our new customers. Information that wasn't being communicated between the scoping team and the execution teams. And because of this, our client expectations were suffering. Those early relationship building needs were also suffering, which is never a good way to start off an engagement. It seemed a little bit like this when we sat in our kickoff meetings to discuss project scope and expectations. People internally were kind of looking at each other with these confused looks. The clients on the other side, some of them times they'd be really silent, which is never a good thing. So it was something that we got behind and fixed right away. Very, very easy solution too. We actually utilized a project management tool to help streamline the process. We had already had this tool implemented across our company. So we kind of looked at it and thought, well, everybody in the company uses this tool, so let's take advantage of something we already have to make this process better. So we implemented a new project alert, and what that consisted of was all the necessary information to ensure all parties were informed of project details. Client expectations that were set up early on, any specific customized documentation, any call recordings that we might have that the project team can listen to, anything that would help set this project up for success was put into here and transferred over to those departments so that everybody was feeling really good. Once we did this and we consistently implemented it as a habit and it became part of our everyday process, when we redid our client satisfaction survey 6 months later, our scores improved by 3 times. And we've actually been able to maintain that over the course of the last few years. So that's been really good.
Our third quick win today is how we use project templates to increase the efficiency when we are setting up these marketing projects. The problem for us was up until a few years ago, our agency didn't have templates for work that was getting done. So our project managers, they would set up projects as they came in, but really what they looked like was more of like an ad hoc checklist, not a solid process being followed. We also realized that we had a lack of documentation in how we completed work. And as a result, we were very inefficient when setting up our projects, or they took forever, in this guy's words. The solution was that we came up with project templates. So for us, it made the most sense to set up these templates by our service offerings. But for you, you may choose to set up your templates based on the most common marketing deliverables. We also recommend getting some buy-in from your process owners. We did this by involving them in the process. We met with our process users internally to document how tasks were to be set up and how work was being completed. And then we worked with those same users to establish who's responsible, who should be an approver, who should be consulted or informed. And we recommend using some sort of work management tool for setting up your templates. But if that's simply just not possible because of budget constraints, Excel or Google Sheets work just fine. To date, 95% of all of our projects use some sort of project template. So as you can imagine, that's greatly increased efficiencies for us internally. Wanted to take a moment just to show you what our templates look like. We use Workfront, but if you have any sort of project management tool, that may, this is very similar, or even Excel, you'll know the kind of roles and things that you should be looking for to add to your Excel document. So here, as I mentioned, are all of our templates, and these are broken up by the departments that we offer to within vertical measures. If you dive in one level deeper, you'll see this is an example from our content template, and the parent task, where it says article or blog, is the actual deliverable, and all those tasks underneath are the child tasks, and it's how we're getting work done. So you'll see the task name, you'll see the assignment, so the role that's responsible for these tasks. You'll also see the average duration and the average amount of time it takes for us to complete that work. And then the last column, the predecessors, that's the relationship between the tasks. So content has to happen first before we can have our customer review an article. This last screenshot here is an example of the inside of a task, and specifically, I want to call out the task details. So it's helpful for us to always have these in our template. We customize them a little bit depending on the project or customer, but at least gives us a baseline of what it takes to get this work done, and so that the team executing on the work is very informed. Setting up the project templates, it should really only be one part of your process. So we recommend that you update your templates as your business changes or your processes changes. We've done this by establishing a four-part model that we recommend you follow at your own company. The first step is to meet with your internal stakeholders or process users to see what deliverables may have changed or are brand new since the last time you guys have met. Then you can go in and you can update your marketing materials to reflect the updated process. And at the same time, you can look at the hours spent on the tasks versus what you had planned to see if there needs to be any adjustments there. And lastly, you can take all that information that you learned in the previous 3 steps and apply that directly to your project templates and update those accordingly.
Our fourth quick win is how to plan resources using forecasting to identify your staffing needs as early as possible. So the main problem that we face, and I think a lot of companies face, is they don't have a real good process for resource forecasting. Resource forecasting it takes a lot of work, a lot of patience, a lot of organization. And so if you have a pool of talent that works for you and they all have individual skill sets and individual schedules, it's important that you implement resource forecasting to know really what's going on in your business, that's sort of what's coming down the pipeline in the future. If you don't have resource forecasting, you're probably more than likely, as we were before we implemented it, promising project deadlines without knowing if your team could actually hit those deadlines. You also might have no visibility on what work is assigned to who. So once that work gets sent over, whether you're sending it via email or via even a project management tool, if you don't have any way to sort of track what's happening in the future, you might not understand who's actually doing that work or the visibility there without really doing a lot of manual effort. Hiring efforts are incredibly reactive. I've been in this industry for over 15 years, and I've worked in agencies where we've had resource forecasting and we haven't. And when we haven't, hiring efforts are definitely reactive. They're very emotional. It might be based on stress or somebody feeling overwhelmed or somebody hearing through the grapevine that there's a big project coming down the pipe that might not actually be happening. So it's important to have some data to back up hiring efforts so that you're making better business decisions. The other thing that really slips without resource forecasting is work-life balance. And typically in the marketing world, when it's so chaotic and there's a lot going on, it's usually resulting in your staff feeling overwhelmed or overworked, stressed out, feeling like they have way too much work on their plate because the person that's scheduling that work is over allocating them. It might also be on the other side though too, where you're not giving them enough work and they're spending a lot of time checking their Facebook page or whatever throughout the day. So resource forecasting can help really refine how you schedule work. So the solution that we recommend is identify all the roles within your company that have to execute on work. Identify the user availability of each role. So maybe, as an example, you have editors that are creating content. Maybe you have 3 editors. So you'll want to identify each editor's availability. Maybe some only work part-time or some work Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So you'll want to identify that. You'll also want to plan any time off. So if they're taking vacation or if you do paid holidays, you'll want to put that into the schedules as well. The best way that we have found is to start with forecasting work for your current projects. So don't think about what's coming, what might be coming, but think about what's already planned and forecast that out maybe 90 days, or depending on your business, maybe it's 6 months out. But make it simple. Don't overcomplicate resource forecasting right out of the gates. Start small, figure out what you really need to know, and then from there you can kind of build on that. So this is how we started. We forecast work for our current projects 90 days out based on guaranteed work. And then from there, once you've mastered that skill, you can start forecasting new project opportunities. So identify any projects that might be coming or that you really feel confident will be coming down the pipeline. And if that's the case, get with those scoping people or your stakeholders and identify the needs and put that into your forecast. And this is really where you can see when your team is going to be in the red so that you can get in front of those hiring efforts as early as possible. From there, you'll want to do monthly check-ins with the scoping teams to ensure accuracy. So check in with them, see how the forecast is going. Is there any changes that they need to be aware of? And also ensure that as staff comes and goes or project come and go or scope changes, that you're constantly in there updating the forecasting tool. Jen is actually our master resource forecast person here, and she, you do this every week?
Yeah, every couple of weeks.
Every couple of weeks, you're going in and updating the forecast.
Yep.
And that helps me when I have somebody come over and say, hey, I'm ready to hire. I also think of it from an emotional perspective, of course, because you want to keep your employees happy, but we also have the data to sort of back up that need, and that's a good thing to have. I'll just show you a couple. I've got 3 examples here of some software that you could buy to help with resource forecasting. There's always like Microsoft Project, or I think Excel would probably be pretty hard to do this, but there's some great tools out there these days that are fairly inexpensive that could help get you there. So this is one that comes highly recommended. It's called Float. It's super cost effective. It's only $5 per month per person that you use in the system. It's got live scheduling updates, the easy drag and drop functionality. You can copy and paste repeatable tasks, which is super common in marketing process, to have repeatable tasks that happen over and over again. So this is a great tool for smaller businesses or people that might not have a lot of budget to spend on software. This one's probably more middle of the road. It's called Forecast. It has different pricing tiers, but the bulk of the product is priced at about $20 per user per month. It has everything a small business would need, including easy-to-use interface for resource forecasting, and you can also integrate other features like project schedules and tasks and time tracking and budgets. And I'm going to get into some of that. Jen and I are both going to get into some of that stuff in a little bit. And then the third one I'll show you here is Workfront. So this is our preference. This is actually what Vertical Measures uses. It's more of an enterprise level, it's fully tailored project management solution. It has a complete workflow management platform, a great set of tools for managing projects, tasks, resources, budgets, and it's all wrapped in a single product. So a lot of these other tools that you'll find when I go back is you can actually plug in different applications to get things to work together. But Workfront has everything in one single platform, which is really nice. They do custom pricing based on needs for each business.
Our fifth quick win is how we use an internal review process to ensure that we are always delivering quality work to our customers. So the problem for us, we didn't have a formal process for reviewing work before it was being sent to our clients. We also didn't have a good way to communicate feedback to subject matter experts when revisions were needed. And as a result, we were delivering work to customers that had errors or it didn't meet our quality of standards, which would frequently cause frustration amongst our customers. Internally, we had lots of finger pointing because we couldn't really hold any single person accountable for maybe why a revision was missed or the quality of work that was being delivered. So the solution was that we set up automated workflows internally for handling internal reviews. But whether it's automated or not, we strongly recommend that you have some sort of process for internal reviews before you're delivering work to your customers, even if those customers are internal. We also had to do a little bit of education for our staff because delivering constructive feedback to your peers can sometimes be uncomfortable. We recommend that you stress why constructive feedback can be valuable for delivering the quality of work so that everybody can understand and get behind that. We wanted to know why our work was being rejected. So you might find that valuable as well. Is it because it was a quality? Was the deliverable incomplete? If you really want to know and use that data for some sort of training, we recommend you document that as well. We did this by setting up reporting to monitor those rejection reasons or why that work is being rejected. And as a result, this improved our quality of work and client satisfaction. So long story short, we're no longer operating like Lucy here. We have a much more refined process for internal reviews before our deliverables are going out the door. So I mentioned that we like to monitor our why work is being rejected. So here's an example of the report which tracks this. This report is a couple months old, but it's still very relevant. And the big takeaway from this report is that we use this data to look for areas of opportunity for improvement internally. For instance, we may find that a large number of deliverables need to be clarified before being sent to the client. If that's the case, and we're finding that we're rejecting work for the same reason, then there's a process issue, and we can use that to dig in a little bit deeper, do some training, whatever the case may be. But it helps us improve as a company.
Our sixth quick win, and probably my personal favorite, is tracking time accurately. I actually get made fun of very frequently. Zach Jones can attest to this, as being the time tracking freakazoid at Vertical Measures. But I believe that it is incredibly important to the business. I actually just wrote a blog post on this last week on our blog. But the foundation of all reporting. So if you want to make good business decisions, you need your team to track time accurately. And I know that's hard for marketing people, creative people. So I'll give you some tactics here. So backtracking about 4 years ago, the problem that we had, and I think a lot of agencies face this, is there's zero time tracking in the company. And so getting people on board with that is a task for sure. Staff felt like it could ruin our culture, like sort of that big brother, I'm being watched, being spied on, and that isn't the point of needing people to track time. And so there was a lot of education that had to happen there. Outside of the staff side of things, just from a business perspective, we didn't have visibility into how time was being spent on projects or deliverables. And therefore, because we didn't have that visibility, we didn't know if we were pricing our projects accurately. So we knew that the pricing that we were giving to our customers was fair, but was it fair to both parties? And I think that is really what we needed to identify. So we came up with a bunch of solutions, and the first thing that we had to do was just overall adoption with time tracking. And that took a lot of training, education, one-on-one conversations to get people to really understand the value of time tracking, but not just to the business, but to them, because it actually really helps them. The next thing that we did, once we felt like everybody was trained up and had some really good tactics on how they can track time easier, we started giving incentives to get into the habit. And so we bought Fitbits and Jawbones and things like that, fun time tracking data sort of things that people really like. And we gave those out as contests and giveaways for people that really just got on the time tracking train and enjoyed doing it and were being good role models for their peers. The one thing I cannot express enough is you have to stay on top of it. So it's been 4 years since we started tracking time, but we still have to stay on top of it every single day. So you might hire new staff that needs to be retrained. You might have staff that's just really struggled with the idea of time tracking, so you have to consistently remind them. So I would recommend that you create some sort of daily hours report on time tracking, whether it be in your project management software or whatever tool that you use for time tracking, and review that on a daily basis. I get a report sent to me every morning, and I'm able to look at time that was tracked the day before. And if I see patterns of people consistently not tracking time, I'll reach out to them. I'll ask them, do they need help? Do they need to understand how to track time? And it's a constant thing that we stay on top of. But because it's so important to the business and getting that data to make better informed decisions, it's something that we've made a priority. The other thing that you can implement is do something fun. I've always thought that if you really get behind the idea of time tracking, you're probably going to end up, you will end up being happier for it, because you're going to get assigned work that's realistic to what you can handle. The business is a healthier business, and therefore the staff is, it just makes the overall happier team. So we put together an internal campaign, and our designers created these really great posters, and we hung them around the office, and it was very simple. It was called My Three Things, and these were the 3 things they had to get behind. So they had to do the work, of course, for their clients, but as soon as they finished that work, they had to do their My Three Things, and it's very simple. They needed to track their status of is the task in progress or complete. They had to update their peers, so leave a comment, let their peers know, hey, this is what I worked on today, I have questions here, and then they had to log their time. Super, super simple, but putting these posters out all over the company got people sort of reminded that they had to do it, and made it fun.
Our 7th quick win is how you can use reports to increase efficiency when monitoring your projects. So the problem, as many of you can probably relate, our project managers were managing a number of projects at a given time. I think that's really probably the nature of marketing projects, is that there are lots of tasks going on at once. And as you can probably all attest again, managing these projects at one time can be really cumbersome, especially when that project data lives in multiple places. As a result, for us, deadlines were frequently being missed because there was no way to really monitor these projects in an effective way. The solution was to create a way for project managers to have visibility into their projects. So we would recommend you'd figure out how you can do this for your own business. But we did this by creating a few project reports. And some of the things you may be interested in including in your own reports are what deliverables are coming up or due in the near future, how the team is tracking on their planned versus actual hours, see what deliverables could possibly be late, so you can jump in, see what's going on, update your project schedules accordingly. Track the overall project status. So is the project in progress? Is it, how far along is it? Like 75%, 80%, etc. And you can also view the budget data. So look at your planned actual cost or your planned or actual expenses. So you can keep track of that. I have a few examples of these reports that I'm going to show to you now. Here's an example of one of our project reports from Workfront. The first section makes it easy for our team to compare the planned versus actual hours. So we can see when actual hours are approaching planned, or in some cases if they're over, because it shows up in red. This combined with this percent complete of the project shows the full picture of the project's health and how it's tracking in terms of completion. This third item here is the condition of the project. So is the project on target? Is it at risk? You can easily see that from this dashboard or this report. This next example is a project report from Maven Link, and you can see very similar data, such as the status of the project or how close that project is to completion, and the project's burn rate and budget. This last screenshot is an example of a project report from Claritin, and it displays a little bit of different information, but still very important, such as the risks by priority. So you can see which risks should be tackled first, or if there's any action needed there. Risks by assignee, so you can figure out, where are the most of these risks coming from, and determine what action plan is needed. And then this last item is any open issues that may be on the project level. So you keep track of those and work on those as needed basis. Oh, sorry, Dana.
That's okay. So the next two quick wins we want to address, they're related to process metrics. And we've learned over time that just creating process metrics, tracking them, and reporting on them to the company or your team or whoever is important to see this, got people excited about the idea of continuous improvement. And that's something that is so critical in this industry, is you always want to look at how you can improve, how you can get better, or you'll fall behind. So our 8th agency quick win is a bit more advanced, but something we really enjoy doing, and that's reporting on first pass yield. And so we do this by using the approval rejection process that Jen talked about earlier to track deliverables that finish the first time around without any rework. So the first thing that we needed to understand was the value of first pass yield. And for those of you that have never heard that term, it's something that's used a lot in product manufacturing, but we've adopted it here because we expect, we give a price to our customers, and we expect them to see a beautiful or cohesive or result-driven deliverable based on what they pay for. And if we have to consistently go back and rework that deliverable, then it eats into our profits as a business, and that's something that's really important. So we've made this a high priority item. We want to deliver work to our clients the first time around that they are ecstatic about. So that's what we focus on. We didn't know how often work was being completed the first time around. So because we've never actually tracked this data, we didn't know if it was 20% of the time or 90% of the time. We had no idea. And I think any business that starts doing this is probably going to face that same problem. The other thing, and this is similar to what Jen talked about earlier, is we weren't tracking the reason for work was being rejected. So we didn't see those themes, those key identifiers, and so we didn't understand how we could fix it. And lastly, we didn't really have a way to track first pass yield easily. It's not super easy to do, but it provides so much benefit that we needed to get creative and come up with a solution. So the solution we came up with is we first started by identifying those main categories of reasons for rejection. So you might have, so ours was clarification, incomplete, quality, but you might have other reasons that are more relatable to your industry or the work that you do. So you can come up with what those reasons for rejection are and hopefully identify some themes about why it might be happening. The other thing that you should do, so if you're using a project management software or task management software, typically you're creating a task for somebody to deliver on that task. If work is getting rejected or you have to rework something, a lot of times you're putting that rework information back into the same task that you started with. So what we learned over time is the best way to track this is to actually create a separate issue or additional task and flag that as a rejection task. And that was a big shift in process for us because it allowed us to really identify the work that was originally scheduled versus the work that had to be rescheduled because it wasn't done correctly. From there, once we had our sort of our process handled and we established an owner in our team to keep an eye on that and track that and really own reporting on that every month, we created a report that showed our rejections versus approvals on a monthly basis. So monthly is what we report on, but you can report on quarterly or whatever's important for you. But we do it by month. And then once we had that report, we were able to establish a baseline, figure out where we started, and then go up from there. And we set up monthly goals for the delivery teams to hit, and we reported on those monthly goals every month during our company meeting. So this is a report out of Workfront. That's the tool that we're using to track this. Again, this is something that you could easily do in Excel. I know another company that shared this with us in the past, and they actually use Excel. But this is how we do it. So in Workfront, you could see here we've identified that rejection issue. What service is it coming from? So we might see a bunch of it's coming from content. Well, that's okay because content is subjective. There's a lot of opinions related to content, and there's also a lot of room for error. Maybe there's grammatical errors or punctuation errors. And so if things like that happen and they get caught before it goes off to our client, those get rejected. So it's not uncommon to see a lot for our business in the content team. But then if you go one step further, I've blurred out the names here, but if we're seeing a lot on the content team, but then a lot to the same person on the content team, we might use that as an opportunity. Well, we do use it as an opportunity to maybe talk to that person, coach them, mentor them. Maybe they need a little bit more help or they need to understand guidelines a little bit more. So we use that as training opportunities to help them improve over time. And then the last really important field here is this rejection code. So this is what Jen talked about earlier, where we can identify the reason why work is being rejected. So we see that theme, and then over time we say, okay, we've got an issue here with clarification. What is happening in our process from the beginning to ensure that clarification doesn't become an issue at the end when work needs to be sent to our clients? And this is an actual report this is our 2017 data of our first pass yield. And we actually really started doing this early 2017. So you could see here, when we started tracking, we were at 60% of our work was getting completed correctly the first time around. And now we're up in the 90%. And a lot of that is based on us just sharing this information with the team, working on process improvements, making it a priority to want to fix this. And now we're actually maintaining in that 90% range. I think we hit 95% with it sometime in the last couple months. So this is something that we're proud of, and I highly recommend doing this as a tool to increase efficiency and profits for your business.
On to our nice quick win. We are almost there. So as Dana mentioned, this is another process metric that we track internally to see how we are delivering our work to our customers on time, hopefully, or not. The problem, as previously mentioned, our internal review process can take anywhere from 1 to 3 days. You might find that your internal review process is a little shorter or even a little bit longer, so then you can account for that accordingly. The issue with that was that we weren't accounting for that internal review time or revision time within our project schedules. So for example, if we were saying that we were going to finish a deliverable today, we were expecting and telling our customers that we would send that deliverable to them tomorrow. And oftentimes that wasn't the case and not even realistic. So as a result, we were missing deadlines for our customers quite frequently. And I'm sure they were wondering what the heck we were doing over here and why we couldn't send them work on time, because really it shouldn't be that hard. The solution is very simple, but it's an important adjustment to schedules, and it's easy for you to do as well. You can add that padding between the date your team is going to finish the deliverable and the date that you're promising it to your customer, even if that customer is an internal customer. So that's exactly what we did. We added that padding to allow for that internal review time before we promise the date to customers. We wanted to track our on-time delivery, so we created a report to help us with visibility. And as a company, we had to do a little bit of a mindset shift. So of course, we want to deliver work on time to our customers. But what is equally as important is if a person working on a task thinks that they aren't able to hit a deadline, say next week, so well in advance of the deadline. We've educated them to reach out to the project managers and say, hey, that doesn't look realistic because of X, Y, and Z. And then we can go back to our customers and reset expectations. So there's not a surprise when that due date comes up and they're not receiving something that they were expecting. We keep this on-time delivery metric top of mind, similar to first pass yield, at all of our company meetings, because we're reporting on this metric each and every month. Here's an example of the report from our project management system. And on the left, you'll see that there are bar charts that show the on-time deliveries for each service or department. And on the right, you'll see the on-time deliveries for us as an agency as a whole. So this is a monthly report we pull at the beginning of every month for the previous month. But then we also like to see the month over month. So we track that as well. And you can see that when we started tracking this in 2017, we were about the 50% for on-time delivery, which is not great. But then because of our process tweaks and really just keeping on-time delivery top of mind, we're now up above 90%, which has shown a great improvement for us.
All right, we're in the home stretch here. So the last quick win is how we measure project profitability by putting it all together in a dashboard for reporting. So you have all this data, and now what? So you've logged time, you've got tasks and schedules and planned hours and actual hours and revenue or costs, and it's a lot of numbers, it's a lot of data. So what do you do with all that data? Well, to start with, you probably don't have visibility into the project or customer profitability without doing a lot of manual efforts. Accuracy on scope, timeline, and budget by project type is hard to identify. Even though you have all this data, it still might be hard to identify this information. There might be a lack of understanding between actual cost to planned cost across your department. So this is something that's important to educate the team on, the importance of it. And this also relates back to time tracking and the importance of logging hours accurately every single day. And again, it's hard to find the data you were looking for without a lot of digging. So we had tons and tons of data. We'd started tracking and doing a lot of this for probably about 18 months before we really understood, okay, how do we aggregate this data up and look at it in a better way. So the solution we created an executive dashboard. You can do this with any tool. It does take a little bit of thought process. You'll want to identify your need to know information and then figure out how you're going to pull that up. But we created a dashboard that aggregated data into higher level information. So we had all these projects and tasks and issues and hours logged. And we really wanted to see, okay, what does that mean for that customer? How is that customer performing? We wanted to track profit margin on a per project basis as well. So what service type was performing better than another? What client was performing better than another? So it was important for us to identify that so we can see those numbers and see where we can improve from one to the other. And again, reports that display that need to know information quickly, especially for the executive team, they don't necessarily want to see all that data. So they might just want to see something high level, and that really tells them the story that they're looking for. Use the data to make informed decisions related to job costing. So once you have all this data and you're using it to make good decisions, you can implement job costing as a process in your company. And so that's something that has become important to us just even very recently. We've been tracking and doing this sort of stuff for about 4 years at Vertical Measures, and job costing has just really started within the last year or so. Here's one example of a executive dashboard. This is Clarizen, and you can see here they've got total costs, cost performance by portfolio, projects by portfolio. So this is a portfolio dashboard, but you might want to see it based on the type of work that you do, or team-based or client-based. So you can define the needs or the data that you want to see, and then create those reports based on that. And I always recommend sketching out what you want before you start building these things. So that's it. I hope that you gained some knowledge or new tricks about some things you may be able to implement in your marketing process. For us, once we really got behind the idea of process improvements and made it important to us, it's really helped increase visibility across our entire company, from our team members to our top level executives. It's improved efficiency and productivity, resulting in a happier team with clearer priorities. And my personal favorite, it's helped raise our agency client satisfaction survey scores up by 3 times. We're going to do a Q&A, but if you have any questions and want to reach out with us, here's our contact information. It's jennifert@verticalmeasures.com or danak@verticalmeasures.com. You can also find us on the team page on our website.
All right, that was really great, guys. Dana, I want to point out that I did not know you were sick that whole time. You did a great job, so I know you were stressed over that, so I'm glad you got through it without any problems. Okay, so we only have a few minutes, so let's get through the questions that we have. This one's from, I believe it's pronounced Nakia. I hope it's right. I'm a one-person team. Any tips to help prioritize and organize for a team of one would be useful.
So we recommend tools like that have Kanban boards, and what Kanban boards are a tool that you can create sort of your task list or your to-do list, and you can move it from one column to another based on the status. And one that is fairly inexpensive or maybe free is Trello. It's Trello, and it's a really easy to use system, very user friendly. It doesn't do a lot of reporting, but for a one-man team, it helps manage your to-do list very, very well.
Okay, kind of keeping on the tools, we got a question from Diana, and it's, would you clarify the nuances or differences between Workfront and Clarizen? Do you still use both tools?
We do not use both tools. We actually use only Workfront. Workfront and Clarizen are actually very similar. They're both enterprise workflow management solutions. They're both priced very equally, and they do a lot of the same functionality. I think at that stage, if you're looking for an enterprise level solution, it's probably just based on preference. And I highly recommend reaching out to them and doing a live demo. They both offer that, and they're both great companies. I've worked in both tools in my career.
Okay, so let's jump into the next one from John S. My biggest issue is there's so much to do and limited time. What is the best way to prioritize my time and strategy for a new cleaning business in Phoenix? I created all the profiles and the site is almost done. I feel semi-overwhelmed and I just want to use my time wisely to grow the business.
So I can see how it would be very overwhelming to start a new business. My husband actually is a small business owner and he deals with this every single day. But I think the best way is to segment your time, chunk it out. Marketing is very important to grow your business. So think about what time of day might be less busy for you doing the operational side and put that in your calendar, and then definitely adopt some sort of project management tool, whether it's something as simple as Trello, like I mentioned earlier, or Asana, or some sort of to-do list, and prioritize that work as you go. But the one thing that we've learned is consistency is key to success. So don't let those marketing efforts get dropped. I think it's easy for those to get pushed aside because everything else can be more reactive. And I think it's just really important to plan for that time and use it wisely and make it a priority.
Okay, we have time for two more. This one's from Avery. My current project management system has a reporting tool built in, but I've never used it because I'm not sure how it would help my future projects. What are the most important data points that could help me improve efficiency for our marketing team?
So Jen, it's probably going back to your project management dashboard. So some of those points.
So we talked about, a few of them in our presentation today, but I would say one of the most important ones is probably your plan versus actual hours, because that will allow you to see, okay, so am I spending too much time on a deliverable? Then I probably need to plan for that appropriately. Other data points may be just looking at upcoming tasks, because you can pull that out typically at a top level, or any tasks that may be late. I'm trying to think. There's other things like the more advanced skills that we were talking about with first pass yield, on-time delivery. We also look at, we didn't really talk about it today, but we look at team utilization. So does it look like my team is under capacity, over capacity? We kind of talked about that with resource management, but you can typically easily pull that out. Anything I'm missing, Dana?
If you do track cost, so if job costing is something that you do, or you understand how much it costs for people to get work done, I think tracking planned cost versus actual cost, and again, this goes back to time tracking, they would have to log their hours for you to get realistic or accurate numbers, but that's another really important metric. And then the other one that we track is profit margin. Right. So we're taking, we're identifying the profit margin based on service and based on client, and that's a big one for us too.
Okay, and the final question, this one specifically for you, Dana, is have you tracked your time for this webinar yet?
Did that come from you, Zach?
I don't know. It was anonymous.
I will definitely track my time after this webinar is over.
Okay,
Yes.
good. Very good. Okay, well, thank you both. That was really great. It was really informative. So thanks for taking your time out of your busy day. I know you guys will track all your time for this. I appreciate that.
Thanks,
Next
Ryan.
month, thank you. Next month's webinar will be on June 28th with the AMA Marketer of the Year, Arnie Ken, and he'll be presenting his 10 critical factors for success in content marketing. Registration will be up for that in about a week or so. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Vertical Measure, no S, and where you can get up to the date information on all future webinars, blog posts, ebooks, and all of our community service and fun stuff we do around the office. Until next time, I'm Zach, and from all of us at Vertical Measures, thank you and have a great day. Thanks, Jen and Dana.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks.